Section 1. You will hear a telephone conversation between a woman and the reservations clerk at a conference centre. First, you have some time to look at questions 1 to 5. You will see that there is an example that has been done for you. On this occasion only, the conversation relating to this will be played first.
Conference Centre reservations. Good morning.
Hi, I'm interested in the computing conference next month.
Future directions in computing?
Yes, that's right.
The title of the course is Future Directions in Computing, so Future Directions has been written in the space. Now we shall begin. You should answer the questions as you listen, because you will not hear the recording a second time. Listen carefully and answer questions 1 to 5.
Conference Centre reservations. Good morning.
Hi, I'm interested in the computing conference next month.
Future directions in computing?
Yes, that's right. Could I ask you a few questions about it?
Of course.
Okay. I know the conference is for 3 days, but actually I want to attend on the Friday and Saturday only. Will that work out to be any cheaper?
Let me have a look. Well, you could register for the 2 days separately, but that wouldn't actually save you very much, as it still costs £35 for each day. In fact, if you could register for the 3 days, you also get an invitation to a free dinner on the Saturday night, so that's probably the better option.
Right, I'll do that. How much will the fees be in that case?
It's £75.
All right. I'd like to register for the full 3 days. Now, can I pay that by credit card?
I'm afraid not. You'll have to send a cheque to us. Or you can pay at the conference office.
Fine. So it's probably easiest if I pay by check. Now then, what else do I need to arrange? Right. How about accommodation? I guess that's not included in the price.
No, I'm sorry, it's not. But we do have a few rooms available for delegates at the conference centre if you'd like. Those are very cheap, but if you're interested, you'll need to book soon because there's always a heavy demand for them. They are only £15 per night, but they are very basic, and you'd have to get your own breakfast because they don't provide you with that. But it's very convenient because it's in the same building as the conference rooms.
Uh-huh.
Or there's a very reasonable guest house, which is £25 per night, and I think that includes your breakfast.
Is it close to the conference center?
It would be about a 10-minute walk away from here.
I see. That sounds quite reasonable.
Before you hear the rest of the conversation, you have some time to look at questions 6 to 10. Now listen and answer questions 6 to 10.
The details are all in our conference pack, which I'll send you.
Great, thanks. That'll be very useful. Oh, and can you also send me an application form?
Of course. I'll get that in the post to you straight away. Is there anything else?
Yes, actually. Can you tell me where exactly the conference center is?
Well, it's on South Park Road, and it's right at the end of the road next to the library. It's a 10-minute taxi ride from the station and will cost you £5. Otherwise, you can take the bus, which runs every half an hour from the station. That's the 21A, and it brings you straight to the conference centre.
Right, got that.
That is the end of section 1. You now have half a minute to check your answers. Now turn to section 2.
Section 2. You will hear a popular science radio program. Liz Shearer talks about some new devices for use in the home. First, you have some time to look at questions 11 to 16. Now listen carefully to the radio program and answer questions 11 to 16.
Good evening. Tonight's show comes to you from the Good Home exhibition in Duke's Court, where we've been trying out some of the latest gadgets on show here and getting our resident expert, Liz Shearer, to tell us which ones are worth buying and which will die a death.
Well, hello. Yes, John, I've been investigating 4 new household gadgets and sorting out the advantages and disadvantages and then really deciding what are must-buys, what are maybe-buys and what are never-buys. Let's start with this vacuum flask for keeping drinks hot. Well, I felt this had quite a lot going for it. Most of all is the fact that it contains no glass and is therefore unbreakable to all intents and purposes. It's made of stainless steel, which is guaranteed for 20 years. Hope that's long enough. And it's true what the manufacturer claims, that it does maintain heat for 18 hours. So that's pretty good. On the downside, it really works out to be quite expensive, and much more surprisingly, it unfortunately leaves a strange taste, when you've drunk from it. So, all in all, my recommendation would be it's got plenty of advantages, but it is rather expensive, so I'd say you should maybe buy it. Moving on to a natty little device, the whistle key holder. Basically, this is where you whistle, and the key holder gives off a high-pitched noise and flashes light, so you can find it. One advantage of this model is that it also has a small light. You press the button, and this means you can find keyholes easily. I also felt the small size was a real advantage. Now, on the weaker side, I did find the noise unpleasant, which I'm sure the designers could have done something about. And I found that it didn't work through metal, so it's mainly useful finding in coat pockets, cushions, etc. But taken as a whole, I thought it was a masterpiece of design and would highly recommend it.
Now you have some time to look at questions 17 to 20. Now listen and answer questions 17 to 20.
The third gizmo is called the Army flashlight because it was developed initially for military use. It works by squeezing the handle to generate the power. Its advantages are that it can be used for outside activities and also, and this is one of the surprising features, it does work underwater. My main objection to it, though, was although it did work in these conditions, this model gave off a weak light. So my recommendation, I'm afraid, would have to be to avoid this one. The decoy camera was last on my list. This is a fake video camera which you fix to your wall to scare off burglars. The advantage of this model is something which makes it look very realistic. It's flashing light. On the downside, it was quite difficult to fix to the wall. However, burglary is such a major problem these days that it is worth the effort. So, this gets my strong recommendation.
OK, thanks for that, Liz. And now I'd like to...
That is the end of section 2. You will now have half a minute to check your answers. Now turn to section 3.
Exam Practice Test 4, Listening Part 3. You will hear two technology students called Alia and Jason talking about their joint presentation on the benefits of playing video games. First, you have some time to look at questions 21 to 25. Now listen carefully and answer questions 21 to 25.
Well, Jason, shall we do some planning for our joint presentation?
Yeah, let's compare the reading we've been doing. Did you read that article by Dr. Franklin?
Yes, the use of games in therapy.
So, we'll need to explain what kind of therapy he's talking about.
Okay, so it's treating people after accidents or illnesses, rebuilding their body strength.
Exactly. And Dr. Franklin sees huge potential for games.
But he made the point that this isn't new. Really, since the 1990s, therapists have been experimenting with games.
Yeah, I agree. Dr. Franklin illustrated that this has been going on for many years. It's not a sudden breakthrough.
I was hoping he'd give some idea about how many health professionals now employ games in therapy.
He doesn't really address that, does he?
Okay, so what's the biggest advantage of games in therapy?
Well, most games are played in virtual reality, so the patient is moving their arms and legs, exercising their body.
So I guess it's quite cheap then.
Yeah, but so are conventional exercises. I don't think that's an issue.
No, okay. But I read that the games are really motivating. People are much more prepared to spend hours on rehabilitation when a game's involved.
I think you're right. That's the most important benefit. In fact, I read some people actually get so caught up in the game they hurt themselves, and the therapists have to slow them down.
Then, did you read about the Singapore study?
Yeah, I started. They were investigating whether people actually made more friends by playing games, right?
That's right. They got a group of teenagers and over 60s together for 30 minutes a day playing video games.
But the subjects weren't all in the same place. They were playing online.
No, they were all together in a room. That's how the experiment was conducted.
We should check. I'm sure it was online.
You'll find I'm right. But anyway, the study found a real social benefit to game playing.
Interesting. So many people say that games are solitary.
Well, the Singapore study showed that players develop empathy for each other and bond over games.
A good point to make in the presentation. Then, I also had a look at the anxiety study.
I haven't seen that one.
Well, they experimented with children waiting to see a doctor. Some were allowed to play games and some weren't.
Was there a particular type of game?
Well, just simple ones on handheld devices. And they found that the children who played games experienced considerably less stress and anxiety. Games distract the mind. That's the theory.
Better for the children, but also better for the parents. That's what I like about this.
Yeah, good point. It reduces the stress for everybody. There just needs to be some additional research to support the finding.
We should also mention the Rhode Island research.
Maybe, but the finding just reinforced what's been shown in earlier studies. That people can be distracted from their bad habits, like eating junk food or drinking fizzy drinks, by playing games.
But no one had used MRI scans before, and the brain scans showed that games activate the same reward centers in the brain as the drinks or junk food. This study has supplied valid proof as to why games work this way.
Actually, that's a good point, and many people would probably like to know about that.
Before you hear the rest of the talk, you have some time to look at questions 26 to 30. Now listen and answer questions 26 to 30.
So then in the presentation we need some more research findings.
Well, I read an interesting study about surgeons. It was in the USA, and it found that surgeons perform better when they play video games in their free time.
That makes sense. I mean, games are obviously going to improve hand-to-eye coordination.
Yeah, I guess it's predictable. Still interesting, though.
Absolutely. Challenges the idea that games are just a waste of time. Then there was a study about vision and eyesight. Apparently, games may actually improve vision. Game players in the study could see differences in gray colors more effectively.
That's odd, though, isn't it? Because there are also studies showing a link between electronic screens and eye damage.
Yeah, it's certainly controversial.
I also read a study about sports. There's a company that makes video games which are supposed to encourage physical exercise. The idea is, you play the sport first in the game, and then you're more likely to do it for real. And the study apparently confirmed it.
Well, I doubt that's really true.
I know. Seems highly unlikely to me. Maybe just a marketing tactic by the company.
The study about aging was a good one. Scientists in Germany found that games have a positive influence on older people by keeping their brains active.
And that's going to be more and more significant as the population ages. Good news for game manufacturers.
I also read that games can actually help your career. The problem-solving, decision-making, and leadership that are developed in some games can actually make you more effective in the workplace.
And there's been quite a lot of previous research to back that up, too. Interesting.
Then, another one that I found.
That is the end of part 3. You now have half a minute to check your answers to part 3. Exam Practice Test 6, Listening Part 4. You will hear a biology student talking about water and how much people need to drink each day. First, you have some time to look at questions 31 to 40. Now listen carefully and answer questions 31 to 40.
Hi, everyone. My presentation today is looking at drinking water. Now, we know that water is a vital nutrient for human life. But exactly how much of it do we need to drink? Well, today I'm going to review some of the research. So, for example, there's a common idea that we should drink 8 glasses of water every day. But researchers say that the 8 glasses a day rule is a myth. Some people might need more than 8 glasses, some a lot less. The only group for whom the rule is useful seems to be the elderly, because they don't always feel thirsty, even when their bodies are actually short of water. So for them, 8 glasses a day might be a good rough guide. Okay, let's look next at what effects water has on the body. One issue of interest is weight loss. And there are lots of theories about this. It's been claimed that dieters should drink more at nighttime, or drink when they first wake up. But there's no research to back this up. But, actually, there is some evidence from studies to show that subjects who drank a lot of water and then had their meals lost more weight. But that may only be because the water filled them up and reduced their appetites. I also read some of the research done by Dr. Amaldi, who's looked in depth at this whole issue of drinking water. And one of his studies does support the common claim that water is good for the stomach. In particular, it seems to increase the rate at which digestion takes place, which overall has a number of health benefits. Another interesting study I read about took place in the U.S., and this one was investigating the effects of dehydration. That is, not having enough water in the body. And what the U.S. study indicated was that when a subject was low on water, their body's ability to regulate its own temperature was compromised compared to a properly hydrated subject. Now, there's another frequent claim about water that I was interested in looking into. But in my reading anyway, I could find no evidence at all to support the idea that hydration improves or enhances the skin in any specific way. So that claim may be a bit of a myth as well. Another interesting aspect of this concerns the brain. And I read about a couple of research studies investigating how water intake may affect brain function. In the first study, the research subjects were female, and the less hydrated group were affected more frequently by headaches compared to those who drank more water. In the second study, the research subjects were all male, and this time a lack of water in the body was associated with a number of findings. In particular, the subjects in this group reported increased feelings of anxiety when dehydrated. So, in summary, we can see that, yes, there are some health benefits from drinking plenty of water. But in many of these studies, the benefit was quite small. And it's probably true that in general, on the internet and so on, the benefits of drinking lots of water are overstated. But what about the opposite? Can you drink too much water? Well, it's possible, but it's not a common problem. Actually, the human body kind of prevents us drinking too much. Australian researchers discovered that when subjects were fully hydrated, they actually found swallowing problematic. Their bodies just wouldn't allow it so easily. So that's an interesting finding. It is true that people do occasionally become sick from drinking too much water, although it is rare. So, there are recorded instances of illness among athletes who have been encouraged to drink a lot, for example. According to doctors, people who have drunk too much water too quickly have become what's called hyponatremic. Basically, this means that the makeup of their blood has changed, and it now contains such a high proportion of salt that they suffer an adverse effect. But it's very rare for this sort of hyponatremia to be a dangerous condition. So, based on the reading I've done, the best advice is to trust your body. Drink water when you're thirsty, but you probably don't need to drink more often than that.
That is the end of Part 4. You now have 1 minute to check your answers to Part 4. That is the end of the listening test. In the Ielts test, you would now have 10 minutes to transfer your answers to the answer sheet.